All right. So what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to go ahead and mark this in the stream as well, so that way we can kind of like just link the time of the post. So this is going to be like the little wizard tutorial, right? This is going to be kind of teaching the newer players what to do for the individual pieces. And I'm going to be standing for this because we're not going to be doing any gameplay right now. So if you're new to the game, if you're new to Dark and Darker and you've been watching my stream and you're like, wow, I need to learn how to play wizard, this will be a little tutorial for you. So first and foremost, obviously, make your character, make a wizard, do a cool name, probably like Glocktane or something. I don't know. Something super fun. Enter the lobby. Now you're only going to have one perk, but we're not going to focus on that right now. High roller leaderboard, you don't need to care about. Rank guides, don't care about those. You're not going to care about those for a while. Next tab is class. Training, doesn't matter. Perk and skill, you're only going to have one. If I was you, I would literally just have it be probably Mana Surge or Arcane Mastery. Because the only thing you should be doing right now, you, the one that's watching this video who is new to the game, learn all the mobs, literally go to YouTube, search up how to interact with Dark and Darker mobs, right? There's a bunch of videos on it. I'm sure Ryan 6 days a week has one. But essentially, each mob or like PvE element, like let's say the goblin, right, has like a radius around it of X feet, let's say 2 feet. If you dip in for a split second and then dip out, that's called baiting an attack, right? Once you bait their attack, they are defenseless for that amount of time. And that's when you can hit them. The wizard for clearing, most of the time, will just depend on using meditation, right? And so we'll go over what all of these do real quick if you are new to wizard. So each perk does something different. Let's zoom in on those real quick. Arcane feedback, don't use this. You gain 1% spellcasting speed and extra arcane magical damage bonus for 7 seconds. The only arcane spell you have that does damage is Magic Missile. Or you could just have Arcane Mastery, which gives you flat 5% no matter what. And it reduces your cast time by 0.5 seconds. So there was an Arcane Mastery nerf recently, but it still makes it very nice, especially when you don't have high gear. So if it takes 2 seconds to cast Invisibility, it's now only going to take 1.5. So Fire Mastery, gain 5% fire magical damage bonus. The duration of applied burns are increased by 2 seconds, and a burn target reduces incoming and physical and magical healing by 50% for 2 seconds. So if you are in teams and you're noticing that clerics are just destroying you because your team is just like, you don't have a cleric and they're out healing you, Fire Mastery is a great way to go. If you're in solos and you're fighting second wind fighters or warlocks, this is a great way to go as well. Basically just cuts healing on the target you hit. This works with Zap, Fireball, and Explosion. Zap is technically a light spell, but it works with them. Technically fire. So, Ice Shield, gain 20 armor rating. That's not much, it's only like 2% PDR. Inflict Frostbite on melee attackers and causing them to lose 20% movement speed and 20% action speed for 0.5 seconds. This could be the difference of life and death. If a fighter gets on you with a falchion, when they hit you, they will essentially lose 20% action speed for 0.5 seconds, which is your item swapping speed, attack speed, all that stuff. So not only are they slower, they also attack slower. So if they go, whoosh, and you can usually get out of the way at the time, right? Because the slow from a falchion hit or a halberd or whatever have you is a lot quicker than the ice shield slow. And if you're using Frostbolt, it will stack because Frostbolt is an ice spell. Talk about that later. Mana Surge, gain 10% magical damage bonus. That is a damage bonus that will be in your magic power bonus area right over here. We'll talk about this later. Don't focus on that too much. We'll talk about stats, okay? So we're going to go back up here. Use my foot pedal. There we go. And we're going to talk about the rest of the spells. Melt. When you deal magical fire damage to a target, the target loses 10% physical damage reduction for 5 seconds. Not exactly the best spell, or the best perk. If you have 4 perks available to you, like you're level 15, sure, you can experiment with it, but the other perks are just going to be better. Quick Chant, gain 10% spellcasting speed. Everything is on an exponential graph. We'll talk about that in a bit, but just know that 10% spellcasting speed will be very efficient at the later stages, just like how Mana Surge would be. Okay? Reactive Shield. When you take damage, gain an arcane shield that lasts for 3 seconds. Shield can absorb up to 10 total damage and will reactivate after a cooldown period. it's like a little buffer, right? A lot of mages kind of suffer with like fighting PvE. If you're just starting out and you want to use meditate and just kind of figure out how to play the game, this is perfectly fine to start with. Once you start actually like wanting to PvP, fight the game, you know, continue quests, you're going to want to take this off. Sage, this is the wizard perk. Gain 10% knowledge bonus. Knowledge is a perfect stat for you. It's just going to be basically mandatory once you have 4 perks. We'll talk about it later. So let's go down to the skills. Arcane Shield. I don't recommend this one. It does scale with will, but you gain a shield around you that absorbs 20 damage from all damage sources for 12 seconds. When the maximum amount has been absorbed, the shield unleashes an arcane explosion, dealing 5 magical damage to enemy targets in 2 meter radius around you. So if you're doing a Rondell dagger build and you want to jab, jab, jab every once in a while, starting with the arcane shield and getting up in their face can be pretty solid. This has been nerfed quite a bit over the past couple of patches. We might see a resurgence of this, but I wouldn't heavily recommend this. Again, great for starting if you're just trying to learn how to attack the mobs, hit them back, you know, because it takes a bit, right? It takes like 6 melee hits to kill like 1 goblin. It's going to take a bit. Feel free to use this as kind of like the bumpers for bowling. Until you get to the higher end stages, like when you're really starting to be proficient, sure you can mess with the build, but I wouldn't recommend it. Intense focus. Once you get comfortable with the spells, this is going to be your bread and butter. Reduce the cast time of your next spell to 0.1 seconds. Just like how Arcane Mastery up top here reduces your cast time, Intense Focus can do it for any spell. It's an activatable. You'll go bong, and then you'll have a buff called Intense Focus. So the next spell you cast is just going to immediately cast. So no matter if it's a fireball, it takes like 3 seconds. It's going to immediately be ready. You still have to hold your mouse for a second just to make it work. Like click. It's not click and let go, you know, because you still have to let your character do the animation, but it's pretty nice. Then we go to meditation. Enter a meditative state and recover spells at a rate of 34 spell costs over 24 seconds. This is pretty tricky. This one scales with your spell casting speed and your spell recovery rate, okay? So knowledge is in charge of those. That's an attribute. We'll talk about the attributes in a second here, but I want to show you what the perks do, okay? So when you're resting, you get 17 spell recovery plus your memory cap. So if you have like 33 memory cap, and then when you sit down, you're going to have 33 plus 17, which is just 50. So every 2 seconds, you're going to get 50 spell points back. Meditation adds another tick, right? So you'll get that 50 and 34. So you get 84 basically per 2 seconds, which is really nice because spell regaining is a very hard thing to come by in the midst of battle. Now, meditate, of course, you don't want to do in battle, but if you're using spells to clear mobs, meditation is a very good crutch. This is why when you're starting out as a wizard, starting with meditation can make you basically jump the amount of time that it takes to learn the character and all of the spells. Because if you're using Ice Bolt, you only get 5 tries. So if you're a newbie and you're trying to run 10 spell or Arcane Shield, you're not going to have all 10 spells. I'm sorry, if you're a newbie running a different perk other than meditation, you're going to have less practice time on the new spells. This is going to be a great thing for starting. If you have specific builds, of course, we'll talk about that later and how I hit Demigod. But just know that it adds on top of your rest bonus, but does not give you rest. So there is different sets of tick. It's very nice, but it can get a little complicated. Most of wizard stuff can. Spell memory 2. So any spell memories that you have to have one of these equipped to cast spells. You cannot have Arcane Focus and Arcane Shield and Intense Focus. You cannot have both of those equipped and still cast spells. And I know what you're thinking. Well, is there no spell wizard? All of these require spells. So the only one that you could use without using a spell is Arcane Shield. So there is no spell wizard, just like Warlock, okay? So spell memory lets you go into spells and choose one wheel. See how this one is redded out? If we go back and take that off, then they're both red. I played like the first 2 games of Wizard, not understanding this because the tutorials were terrible. I'm trying to save you from that. When you get to higher levels of wizard, 10 spell is when you have 2 spell memories and you don't rock another perk. Because more spells means you can cover more options. And if you have a team, they can keep you safe while you sit and rest to gain back your spell points. So I'm going to take off all my spells here just to kind of go through all of them real quick. So we're going to go ahead and zoom in. So for each tier, you multiply that by 100. That's how many spell points it costs. Okay? So Zap, the little spell, like a mosquito, deals 20 magical damage and burns the target for 1 second. As your flat damage, it costs 100 spell points per cast. You get 5 casts. You can see right here, right in that little corner. That's what that number means. The color of the spell means what type it is. So this is a light spell, but it still works with Fire Mastery. That's why we brought that up. White is light. Red is fire. Blue is ice. Sorry, light blue is ice. Purple is arcane. Deep blue is going to be lightning. And I think that's all we have right now. Yeah. Arcane, light, fire, ice, and lightning. Yeah. So if tier 1 costs 100, tier 2 costs 200, tier 3 costs 300. So while you're meditating, you're going to be gaining back like that 80 spell points. That's going to help you get back the bigger spells faster. If you're just sitting there, you're going to be like, wow, this is going to take a hot minute. This takes forever. Well, if you use a campfire, the campfires also give you more spell regen. Think of it like Dungeons and Dragons. You get a short rest, and that's kind of how it works, right? You're sitting at a campfire, getting a short rest, getting your spells back. Now, a long rest would be, of course, getting out of the dungeon. You get everything back. So, let's say I want to use a certain amount of spells. Well, I've got 19 spell memory to work with because that is based off of my knowledge and my memory capacity. If you have items that say plus whatever memory capacity, that will directly influence that right there. If you have plus knowledge, for every 1 point of knowledge, you gain 1 more memory cap. So let's go ahead and let's try zooming out. Let's say we want to rock Zap, Fireball, of course. Ooh, Chain Lightning sounds awesome. Let's get some Lightning Strike and some Explosion. Uh-oh. We can't rock that because they cost too much. Well, we should probably think about what we want to rock instead. Well, I like the lightning spells. Well, let's go with Magic Missile. Yep, exactly. See? 18 out of 19. And you can play around with that. And once you start getting gear on Wizard, especially in this update, it makes it a lot easier to get. So, I'm going to take this off, and we will be taking questions after I get through all of this. This is very important, though, okay? This is just the intro to Wizard and how it works. So that's how you build spells. We'll do, I think this is the default, if I'm not mistaken, right here, just to kind of show people how it works. Haste for mobility, Invis for getting rid of mob aggro, Magic Missile for up close shots, Fireball for breaking doors, and big burst damage, and Zap to finish them off. So let's pretend that's the build we're going with. And the perk and skill is just meditate, right? And so we're also going to rock Arcane Mastery, because the arcane spells are the purple ones. And so Arcane Mastery is going to take off half a second of both of these spells, which is very good for us. And it's going to add an extra 5% damage to Magic Missile, okay? So, what do we do now? Well, we want to go to our stash and we want to kit our character. Let me go ahead and move my camera so you can kind of see everything. Now, this stash is entirely full because we are a absolute mega guapo wizard, right? You will be too, but you have to learn the fundamentals. So, fundamentals of Wizard. You will see your perks here, right? Right now we can see Arcane Mastery, the 2 spell memories. I do want to set an example with Meditate here. So, I had to re-equip it. Little bug out there. Meditation. Now, the attributes. What these attributes do, if you just hover over them, you can see them. Let's go ahead and zoom in here for you guys. Strength. Increase your physical power and the damage you do with weapons. Slightly increases your health. Because strength used to be health and attack, but they split that up. So now for every 4 points of strength, you get 1 Vig. If I'm not mistaken, it's kind of whatever. So Vig is increase the health of your character, increases your health recovery rate. So when you're sitting, people with a lot of health or a lot of vig will then be able to recover more health. It's like we're all resting. We all kind of want the same attribute. If you have only 80 HP as a wizard, you're not going to heal as fast as a barbarian that has 100 HP, right? When you're sitting, because the percent gain, it makes a lot of sense. Agility. It's your regular interaction speed and your move speed of your character. You are at 15. That means 0. Slightly increases the action speed of your character. Action speed, we'll talk about that in a bit, is also like the attack speed and everything. Remember the ice shield? It's important. For all of these stats, they are on an exponential graph. And what that means, when you're on an exponential graph, means when you first start getting them from like the 0 point, you're like, whoa, I'm getting so much. But then as you get more, it starts tapering off. It's like, well, I have 40 knowledge. I want to get 42 knowledge. That's only going to be like beep. On the graph. That's going to be up here where it starts to flatten out, right? Because they don't want somebody to be able to just entirely buff one stat and just break the game. It's like for every point of vig you get, you get like 2 HP and then you start getting only like 1 HP. Because otherwise you'd have somebody with like 400 HP and you couldn't do enough damage. That is the idea behind the attributes, and that's very important because we'll talk about that when we get to the statistics, okay? So your dex is the action speed and the manual dexterity of your character. Agility slightly goes into action speed because that used to be the same thing. They had a nerf where they swapped agility from just agility to agility and dex. Just like how they did strength to strength and now vig. They were essentially in that problem of this one perk or this one attribute is too strong. What do? Well, let's split it up so that way their gear has to be decisive. It's a very good change. I love Iron Mace for it. So the dex isn't really going to matter on you because it doesn't affect spell casting speed. Okay. So we're not really going to talk about dex. If you'd like to learn more, check out a rogue, maybe a slayer fighter, or even a ranger for that matter. Will increase the magical interaction speed and spell power. Improves your buff and curse duration, and improves your base magic resistance. So these attributes, the reason there's only like 6 of them is because they are the big cheese that affects multiple little things, right? That's what an attribute does. So will affects magical interaction, magic power, curse debuff, and buff duration. And I think one other one, but like that's the idea, right? So if you see a piece of armor, let's say loose trousers, that has plus 3.6% curse duration. Do you think maybe you'd want to have a will piece instead because you get more attributes for it? Yes. So will on some pieces, one of those attributes, just explaining for the newbies here. Remember, newbies, you can only get like +2 will, +2 knowledge, +2 strength. There will be other pieces that have innate features. Like the padded tunic will always give strength, but it can also roll strength. So in totality, you can get like 4 strength from a padded tunic, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty nice. So if you have a couple of specific things you like spellcasting and memory cap, you might want to just get knowledge instead. These will be important things that you learn later. But let's focus on the attributes. This is a lot, I know, but you want to be a wizard. You want to do the cool shit. So let's do it. So again, strength is what? That's right, physical power, and it slightly increases your health. Vig is health. Agility is attack speed and slightly increases your action speed and movement speed. Sorry, it's your movement speed. It slightly increases your action speed. Dex is your action speed. Will is your magic power, buff and curse duration, and your magic resistance. Knowledge. Knowledge increases your memory capacity of your character and spell casting speed of your character. That means if you have a fireball that casts in like 2 seconds, but you start pimping out your knowledge, you can get your fireball all the way down to like 1 second. This is going to increase your play for wizard tenfold, because if you can Think of it like an AK-47 versus a bolt-action sniper, right? The bolt-action sniper, if you just focus on your damage, sure, you might be able to, you know, two-shot somebody. Bang! Bang! Or you can increase knowledge, and your spellcasting speed will go up. So you do the AK instead. Bang, 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 bang. You're going to be able to get more spells off. And if you have the ability to get more spells off, the majority of the time, you're going to be able to fight multiple variables, right? If you are struggling to hit just one ice bolt, you know, you got one shot, don't miss your chance to blow. The barbarian's running at you. You got an ice bolt. I missed. I'm dead because I won't be able to get off another spell. You need more knowledge. I personally try to get upwards of 90% spell casting speed. So my spells are almost half. That chain goes hard. Thanks, Shadow Money Wizard Gay. Thank you. So those are kind of the brief look at the attributes, right? Knowledge is going to be a perfect hyper-efficient stat for you because it increases what you can use and the spell casting speed of your character. Resourcefulness is going to be the all-around interactivity. Increases your regular interaction speed of your character. So characters like Rogue and Ranger are going to have a lot of those. You can install traps and campfires faster. Think about it, Ranger, right? We like to use campfires, but we're very slow at it. If you have a teammate who likes playing one of those classes, they can set down a campfire for you so fast that your kitties will go flying onto your desk. So it's going to be one of those things you're not really going to get to interact with. Other classes are going to get more resourcefulness. If you buff this up for some reason, dear God, why? Oh, why? So this is where it gets tricky. I'm going to close the stream chat here so that way you guys can see absolutely everything with no distractions because it's going to be a little intense, okay? Okay. So this is a reacclimation of all of the attributes, right? We're in the stats page now. This will be where if you really want to focus on something specific, you could come into the stats page in your stash, okay? This is what you'll see me doing a lot. The 4 things I care about the most on Wizard are going to be your spellcasting speed, right here. It's only at 15% right now, right? Your move speed. This is your number here, which affects your percentage. So if we were to take off, the armor will be in the green. You know, we'll be going a little bit faster. But you start with this, okay? Spellcasting speed, again, affected by knowledge. And then I care mostly about your physical power and your magical power. So we're going to zoom down here. And what do you notice about these two? One's at plus 17 and one's at negative 25, right? Well, what do we remember about these two stats? Physical power is how much damage you do with melee. Magical power is how much you do with spells or magic damage. So if you were a rogue, you would do a bit more damage with your poison if you had magic power. If you had higher physical power, you do more damage with a dagger. Same thing applies here, guys. Same thing applies here. So physical power will be the weapon damage. Okay? 5 magical damage is the scaling that you're going to have using spells with that weapon. So a gray staff using 5 magical damage is going to do much less than a rare staff, right? Because this is a rarity of rare, and this is junk. So 9 magical damage will do so much more. Okay? And I use this staff as an example because I'm going to zoom out here. You see what the physical power bonus is? Negative 25. That means with your staff, you are doing negative 25% damage of 32. If you hit them in the chest, bam, you will do 1/4 less damage, which of course is 8, right? So you'd only be really doing 24 damage. That is pitiful. That is absolutely pitiful. Even the skeletons and the goblins are going to take a while to kill. That's with a rare staff. Now, the game, of course, has a problem where it does not identify what you will have for physical power or magical power, or any of your stats, really, with a weapon equipped. So you'll notice that when I equip this staff, this number right here doesn't change at all, right? But if we take one of these bad boys, a loose trouser, and we look at our magical power bonus, it's 17% because we are at 22. Our magic power comes from will, remember? So naturally, our will starts us off at 22. You have to get to 15 for all of these bonuses to be at 0. Okay? At 0. So, if we want to get the physical power up, we need to find a piece of equipment that gives us either strength, physical power, or a physical damage bonus. So, for example here, I know I saved a couple just in case. There they are. These gloves right here give you 5 strength, 1 will, 1 dexterity, and a little bit of projectile damage reduction. So, can anyone tell me what's going to happen when we add these gloves to our kit? What will happen to our physical power bonus? That's right. It's going to go up a bunch. It goes all the way up to 11, right? Because we're trying to get up to 15. If your attribute, remember this thing at the top, strength, it was negative because it's not at 15. So we're going to have less health. We're going to have less strength. We have a base stat of agility, no extras. We have a base stat of resourcefulness, but the wizard is very good in magical power and in spellcasting speed. So to make our melee hits do more, we add just a little bit of strength, and then we can immediately start doing more damage. So now with our staff, instead of doing negative 25%, we're doing -8. Okay? This is important. If you don't understand this, feel free to ask questions after we're done talking. You'll be able to get it all. So, what I personally like to do is add just enough physical power to be at 0. Because if the skeleton has 200 HP and I'm only doing 24 damage, it's going to take, what, probably like 4 or 5 headshots just to make it work. But if we can get up to the actual 32 that it does, it's only going to take 2 or 3 headshots. It's going to be a lot easier, right? That is a core principle of the game that not a lot of people understand. They'll take their wizard that they've buffed up in magic power and they'll just be hitting. And they're like, wow, this skeleton just won't die. I've hit it like 7 times. Fucking weak. It's like, dude, you haven't put anything into strength. You have a frail old man casting fireball. Dude's got arthritis in his fucking wrists and you expect him to beat a skeleton to death? What are you doing, you fucking dork? So, remember, your strength is like your melee damage, right? Now, magical power comes from will. And I, of course, being a wizard connoisseur, absolutely love pumping this up as much as I can. So, for example, here is a really good piece of equipment. Let's see here. So, it's an oracle robe that gives you 5 knowledge, 2 vig, 3 magical power, and a little bit of PDR, which is physical damage reduction. So if I put this on, it jumps up to 23%. And the loose trousers have more magical power. Let's put those on. 27%. That's just 2 pieces of clothing. So without them, my zap is going to do 20 damage, scaled off the 9 magical damage, and then you add your magical power. Right? This is such a hard thing to grasp, okay? But once you understand those core concepts of how you're outputting damage, the game becomes a lot easier. So the best tips I can give you as a wizard, Start with meditate, get comfortable with all the spells, and then start asking the deeper questions. Now we're going to finish up the rest of these stats. I'm going to give you a build, and then we're going to move on, okay? So in this current patch right now, we're not really going to be depending on Magic Missile as much as we used to in the past because it was so strong, or Chain Lightning. I personally go 10 spell, and it's an Ice Bolt meta. Now, we'll talk about that in a second, but let's go into stash, and let's finish up these. Health, obviously your health, memory capacity, we talked about it. It's how much of like the spells you can have, upgrading their costs and everything. So for 10 spell, you need roughly 33 or 34. This plus 17, the total, like, so the 24 plus 17 is what you get when you're sitting down and have the rest buff activated. Utility effectiveness, doesn't matter. Luck, you shouldn't care about that yet, but that's when you get like luck potions, a bard, Grimsmile rings, gold armor. It'll increase the drop rates. It doesn't actually make it so anything can drop a legendary. A lot of people think that, but like if a chest can open you can get junk, common, green, blue, and purple. It'll just kind of skew the scale upward, okay? Health recovery bonus. That was the VIG that we were talking about earlier. Spell recovery bonus. That's how fast it happens, because when you're sitting down, it's every 2 seconds you get a tick of that spell memory, right? So if you have spell recovery at 150%, instead of 2 seconds, it's going to happen every 1.5. It's very nice. Move speed. You want to try to be above 300 if you can. That's my preferred thing. Action speed. It's your attack speed, basically. Manual dexterity. Doesn't matter for you. Spell casting speed. Again, I try to shoot upwards of like 90%. You should probably get comfortable at a very low percent early on. But then once you start getting gear, start trying to shoot for at least 60 while you're in green gear. And then as you progress, come visit me on Twitch. We'll talk about your builds and what you can do, because you'll start understanding the game a little bit more. Equip speed, doesn't matter for you, but you can guess. Regular interaction speed, it's going to be low. You just interact with things slower than other people. Magical interaction speed, it's based off your knowledge now as of this patch. I'm sorry, it's based off of your will, no longer your knowledge as of this patch. So you take health shrines, open portals, all that kind of stuff faster. If it's magic, you use it faster. Persuasiveness, doesn't matter. Buff duration. This is important. If you cast haste on yourself and it only lasts 8 seconds, your buff duration will give it an extra 5%. Cool. If you cast it on the barbarian, it goes off their buff duration. So if the barbarian doesn't have high will and he's at like negative 10%, it's going to be that 8 seconds minus 10%. Debuff duration. How much longer, shorter a debuff lasts on you? So I have negative 4.8%. This should be green. I don't know why they still have it as red. That's dumb. You want it negative. You want it negative, because if somebody hits you with Curse of Pain and it usually lasts 10 seconds, minus 4.8% of that 10 seconds. That's a good thing. So there's not really a way to go negative. I think it just is flat 0 if you don't have any will. Like, shoot, who doesn't have any will? I think maybe the rogues, but it don't matter, right? Armor pen. Again, can only get that from items. Cobalt set has some. You shouldn't really worry about it unless you're doing Dagger Wizard. And at that point, you shouldn't be watching this beginning tutorial. Magic pen. Determines the amount you reduce a target's magic reduction amount. This is so... This makes me so mad because I do the math. Their damage formula that they have up on the Spells and Gun Wikipedia page is inaccurate. It is their magic resist minus your magic pen. So if you have 10% magic pen and they have 30% magic resist, they effectively have 20% magic resist. The reason they gear lock you to only about 15 magic pen is because if it wasn't like that, you could effectively always do true damage to people. And people say, no, it's the 10% of the 30%. Oh, you think that it's only going to take away 3% magic resist. So I'd have to do 100 damage for it to help me do another 3. Are you dumb? Are you actually dumb? No, it's literally just the minus. Otherwise, they wouldn't gear lock you. They wouldn't lock you into only doing the 3 damage of Magic Pen. No other game works that way. No other game works that way. So, shut up, Brad. So then, headshot reduction. When you hit a headshot with a projectile or a melee weapon, you will do 150% minus their headshot reduction. So right now, with the wizard hat, you can see that it gives you 2.5% headshot damage reduction. So instead of getting hit at the head for 150% damage, we get hit for 147.5%. Not a lot changes there. But there are things that the fighter has, like the armée, that are like negative 12%. And then there's also other ones, like the Hound Skull, it's like negative 25. So instead of 150, it's only 125. Right? So this is important for you because 3 of your spells are projectiles. Ice Bolt, half the fireball damage, and Magic Missile is technically a projectile on all of them. So there are impact zones on your body. The head, you get 150% extra damage. Congratulations. We're all so happy for you. If you hit somebody's arm, it does negative 50. So if your Magic Missile's hitting for 18 to the body, hate to break it to you, bud, if you hit him in the arm, you're only doing about 9 damage, right? Wild. The chest is 0%. So it's 0%, negative 50, plus 50, essentially. Projectile damage reduction. This, of course, also reduces projectile reduction. So if you have 10% and you have 10% here, and you use Magic Missile, and you're hitting somebody for 20 damage, you would do plus 150. So an extra 50% of that is going to be 30 damage on that Magic Missile, minus the 20%, minus the 10%. That's the damage calculation. So if you're trying to figure out how much damage you're going to be doing to a barbarian, in the pregame lobby, if you run up and inspect him, you can see all of their stats as well. Physical damage reduction, that's how much damage reduction you take from their weapons. So if somebody hits you with a falchion in the chest for 32, minus 15.6. Somebody hits you in the arm, minus 50%. And also, minus 15.6% first, and then half that because it's arm damage. This is for everything. Magic resist, same thing for spells. Physical power bonus, that's how much melee damage you do. Magic power bonus is 27. Now, the real last thing for stats is to just remember that these up here, these stats in the primary slot, those will activate when you're in game and only when you're holding the weapon. Okay? Only when you're holding the weapon. That's it. So I only get that plus 5 physical power when I'm holding the staff. That's pretty solid because that's when I'm going to be using the melee. Then we're going to go back to class. We're going to talk about these spells real quick because there are going to be a couple of questions that you have about these. So Zap, you just literally shoot out a hit scan ability, and it's got like a range of 10 meters. A lot of people don't realize it has a range. Light Orb, cast spheres of floating light to brightly illuminate your surroundings. This will reveal rogue stealth. Not invis pots, just rogue stealth. Not bard stealth. It might reveal bard stealth. I don't think anyone's actually ever tried to do that. It's supposedly all magical stealthing. But there's a lot of bugs. Use it just to find rogues. It's essentially a rogue check. Zap still works with Fire Mastery, so use it to cut someone's healing. I usually use this as a finishing off tool, not an engage tool. Unless you are insanely geared. Slow. Slow the target's move speed bonus by 40% for 2.5 seconds. Their bonus. Just their bonus. It used to be just slow their move speed by 40%. It was goated. It was amazing. It was like one of my favorite spells. But now, I don't recommend people to use this. I will in later patches once this updates. Because I'm pretty sure it's bugged right now. It's a whole thing. You can try it if you'd like. But just know that the cast time of using the slow, you're going to turn around, you're going to cast it, it's still a skill shot, and if you miss it, you're pretty much fucked. Ignite. Set the target's weapon on fire while active, deal 5 magical damage, and burn enemies on successful attacks. On paper, this is one of the best spells. And you're probably thinking, yo, what if I just do this for my barbarian and my fighter? Ignite's damage is based off of whoever has that buff. So if you're the fighter and you have 0% extra magic power, your ignite on your weapon is going to do 5 magical damage. Congratulations. Oh my god. But for the wizard, if you have more magical power and a staff out, instead of that 5 damage, it's going to do like 18, bro, and burn for like 11. It's going to do a stupid amount. It's going to be great. So that's what we use to do to kill troll, to kill mobs faster while you're meleeing, right? So Ignite is a great tool early on to help you clear mobs. Ice Bolt. Deal 30 magical damage and reduce the target's move speed bonus by 20%, action speed by 20% for 1 second. This stacks with Ice Shield. So if you hit them with Ice Bolt and they're slowing down, but they still manage to get a hit off, they're going to be slowed by like 40%. And that's going to be real nice just to get you out of there. So Ice Bolt in this meta right now with movement speed rogues and movement speed barbarians, this is king. This spell is king right now. Magic Missile. This used to be a stat check where if they got on you, you would just say, hold the line! And you would just try to mow them down. This was a big part of solo wizard gameplay. Chip them down as they're running you down and magic missile in their face. If you had a high enough spell casting speed, the magic missiles would go instead of just foom, 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 foom. If you aim at the head, when the spell releases your hand, it will slightly track the enemy. It's not a lot. It's not great. This is really good for clearing mobs early game, and this is why I say when you're just leveling up your wizard, start with a staff, so it does more damage. Use Arcane Mastery, so you cast it faster. And then just go for headshots. They even reduced how much magic resist most of the mobs have in the game, so that way you can take them out faster, and then you can meditate. Because Wizards' PvE clear was so slow, so abundantly slow, they had to literally change it. So it's pretty solid for PvE, but as of right now, not so much PvP. Haste. 5% move speed bonus, action speed for 10%, 10% spellcasting speed for 8 seconds. This is pretty nice. This is pretty nice. I still have a hard time finding a great way to use it other than just at the very beginning of the fight. It used to be for a lot longer, but essentially casting the spell, swapping to another spell, getting in the right position to then use that spell is usually going to take you roughly 4 or 5 seconds. So you get all those stats for one cast. This is mostly a support ability now. If your barbarian, your cleric, or your fighter is breaching the door, you just hit them with haste. Hell, even if your rogue is chasing someone down, don't even try to shoot a zap or an ice bolt at the enemy. Just haste your rogue, make them faster. Because the action speed is attack speed, they get move speed for 8 seconds, and they're going to be obliterating anyone. Lightning Strike. This was recently nerfed in the last patch. When casted, a bolt of lightning falls in the target area for 4 seconds, electrocuting enemies, dealing 30 magical damage and reducing enemies' move speed by 20%. Move speed bonus by 20%. So, all electric spells will slow whoever it hits their move speed bonus by 20% for 1 second. This also happens with Chain Lightning. But this spell got nerfed to where the AoE on the ground, your little indicator, is a lot smaller now. I personally don't use this anymore because with high move speed characters, the smaller indicator means it's very easy to dodge. And in team fights, if you and your teammate don't actually, you're not very synergistic yet because you're starting, remember, video for noobs. While you're starting, you're not really going to know how people are positioning in team fights. They won't call out when they're going in or disengaging. But when you are synergistic, and your teammate's like, I'm disengaging, you can cast it where the person is going to be chasing them and just destroy them. Or vice versa. I'm chasing them back and place the spell behind them and hit them. In solos, it's not my favorite because there's too many variables and there's usually too many fast characters, or they're damaging from outside of its range, because it only has an effective range of like 10 meters. Invisibility allegedly grants the target invisibility for 4 seconds. While active, the target also gains 5% movement speed bonus. Self-cast if no target is found. Be careful, you can cast any of these buffs on dead bodies, enemies, and your teammates. So if you're trying to invis into a fight, look up. Don't get in the habit of looking down, because your hand, when you're casting with the spellbook, can hit the wall, can hit the ground, can hit anything in front of you. But if you cast up, your character's model is a lot better for it. You only get the move speed bonus while it's active. If you become visible again, you lose that bonus. That's how it works. Every second of invisibility, there will be a ping showing an outline of your character. Okay? Fireball. Shoot a burning fireball. Very simple. This can also break doors. Shoot a burning fireball, dealing 25 direct magical damage to a target and 10 splash damage while knocking back nearby targets. The knockback is very useful. It's very, very useful. If somebody's pushing you, put it in front of their feet. It can kind of jar them back a little bit. Barbarians have a perk that lets them ignore this. They are the magic tank. It's just how it goes. Your damage scaling on Fireball. See how it says 25 direct magical damage? That is counted as a projectile. So if you hit them in the arm, it is negative 50%. Let that sink in. That is negative 50%. If you hit their shield, it negates it. The splash damage is then what hits them, because it can like go around things, right? There is no after trail of Fireball. You can hit your teammates. There is friendly fire. The only real time you want to use this is when you can get headshots on mobs, headshots on enemies, obviously, breaking down doors so that way your team doesn't have to stop running to chase people, breaking down doors to get away from mobs. In combination with invisibility, you get big chunk damage. Starting a fight where you hit the fireball in the AoE around them, so that way they are burning and they can't heal as much with Fire Mastery. Very simple things. Explosion. Think of it like a sticky grenade mixed with our favorite spell, Zap. So there are 2 hit scan abilities in the game. Explosion and Zap. 2 damaging hit scans anyway. So when you cast Explosion, immediately, like, I think it's like 8 or 9 meters out, a little dot will start going. If you hit that dot on a character's limb, chest, or head, it will stick to them. Shields will block it, meaning it will stay in the air. So if you hit their shield, they can then walk away. They can walk away from the explosion, okay? So if a fighter is pushing you and you hit them in their feet over and over, it's not a projectile. It will still do max damage, and it's pretty great. Now, there are all these different things. I personally use it around corners because it is the tightest hitbox, so it can compete with arrows. I use it, Brad makes a good point, through doors. And I mostly use it on clerics when I'm starting an engagement, or warlocks, so that way they're not healing as much during the rest of the fight. It's a very niche spell. Again, use Meditate to learn. Chain Lightning. Oh my god, my favorite and most hated spell. I want to die. 35 magic damage. Fires lightning that is transferred to targets within 8 meters up to 3 times. Has a range of 10. So if you get very good at it, it will not bounce back to you. Because if you hit within the range of 10, if it's within 8 meters of something, right, it will then chain to it. So if you cast from within 5, it's going to chain back to you, right? It can also chain to dead bodies. This becomes a great little mini game of, will the client show me where the corpses are? Because you can destroy an enemy team with 1 chain lightning. It's the best feeling. Oh, it's like fucking heroin. Gaming heroin, of course. Come on now. But it can also chain to a corpse that is on another level above you and back down to you. it can chain to an incorrect hitbox and back to you. It can chain through a wall and back to you. You can hit your teammates with it. So if you chain the barbarian who has a bunch of magic resist, you can hit the enemies with it. Cool stuff. You can chain a Hydra. There are so many limitless capabilities to this spell, but it is such a high skill ceiling. There's just so much to do. It's very, very potent with the ability Intense Focus. Okay? So there are a couple of builds that we can talk about, but then we are going to talk about the items first that can give you spell casting, okay? So there are 4 items that you can cast spells with. There is a staff, a sword, a spell book, and a crystal ball. So each of these has a hidden thing that I call spell release. It is not in the game. I call it that. Nobody else does. The reason we say that is because each spell casting item charges up the same, but when you release it, there is a set amount of time. The crystal sword takes the longest because it is going to be the most upfront physical damage. It has hybrid of physical and magical damage when you stab something. So if your physical power and your magical power are both scaled, that sword's gonna hurt like a motherfucker, okay? That is the slowest. You will essentially cast it, right? Now, since it can also be a great melee tool, do you guys see how it says magic weapon damage? It does not scale up your weapon magic spells at all. So if I use Fireball from this spellbook that has 2 magical damage, it'll have an extra like 2-3 magical damage depending on its scaling. With Crystal Sword, it will be at base damage. Okay? This is not my favorite. It's a fun weapon. I like to use it for quick PvE clearing. But if you have Ignite, a lot of the times, Magic Staff is going to be better because your magical damage, see how this is 6, will scale harder, right? So if you use Ignite on the sword, it's going to do that like base damage. But if you use it on your Magic Staff, it's going to have that extra magical damage, okay? The spell book is the fastest spell release. It also has the least move speed penalty. This is the go-to for PvP because you have the ability to kite and you can get off more spells faster. Magic Staff will give you the most magical damage, but it's like the slowest of like those casting items. Okay. Crystal Sword, you don't even really cast with. Magic Staff is what you're going to start with. So when you start unlocking spell books, you're going to say, wow, this is so much better. But you'll also be a little weaker. Okay, remember that. You're trading utility for damage, right? So it's up to you to decide what you enjoy the most. Then, the crystal ball is the only one-handed. Everything else is two-handed. So you can put a dagger in your hand. You can cast and melee. It's not going to be the strongest magical damage, but it also gives you weapon damage, which will then apply to your dagger as well. Your dagger has a negative move speed of 10, and you have a negative move speed of 15 on the crystal ball. Put those together, negative 25, just like the magic staff, right? You can see the complexities. You can see the complexities forming. If you have a junk crystal ball, no extra stats. If you have a rare one, you get 2. But see how there's physical power and armor pen? You can kind of see where they want you to go with the whole crystal ball thing. It's very fun. I enjoy you. I implore you to try it. My favorite is the spellbook, hands down. Now, the last thing, because we've been talking for like an hour straight, is different types of builds. I personally, my favorite that I try to run the most is when you get to level 15, you want to do Arcane Mastery, Quick Chant, Ice Shield to keep you safe from Invis Rogues, a fighter who gets on you, a ranger, so that way they can't just keep popping arrows as fast as possible, and sage. Those are the perks that I choose to run. Sometimes I'll swap out arcane mastery. If I'm in teams, I'll go fire mastery. Or if I absolutely need more damage, I'll go mana surge. It kind of depends on the patch, right? So let's say, for example, right now, we're just going to stick with arcane mastery. Keep it simple. Then, instead of meditation, because I'm an advanced wizard, I try to go either intense focus, which I would then pair with very, very strong abilities, right? If I do that, I can then get off all of these spells much stronger. These much stronger spells, right? Much faster. With intense focus having a cooldown of like 20 seconds, you would quick cast chain lightning, and then while they're afraid, you start casting fireball and walking towards them. It's a very imposing and intimidating build. Once you get comfortable on wizard, it's very, very good. Then we want to move over to 10 spell. So if you do 10 spell, instead of having just pure damage, you can have a lot of utility, like light orb, zap, haste, invis, slow, ignite. You can run every spell but 2 of them, and you can mix and match however you want. Say you want to go for specific builds, specific fights, that kind of thing. Like, oh, I want to be a support wizard more so. Oh, I want to be damage, yada yada yada. It's a lot of fun, but you don't get those extra abilities as like a crutch, right? So one of my favorites right now for solo, I rock 10 spell because you get all of this variability. You start with light orb. When you go into a new room, you try to light orb around, because within 3 meters of that light orb, no rogue can be invisible. Then you have slow, ice bolt, zap, fireball, fireball to break down doors and do chunk damage on people with shields, zap for quick, clean kills, ice bolt for if somebody without a shield is running you down. You do invis to clear off mobs, because if you're invisible, the goblins, the skeletons, all that stuff won't go after you. If they've already primed an attack, they will continue with the attack, just like archers. So if you have an archer who's already got a bow pulled, the skeleton archers, even if you go invisible, they will track you. That's just how the game works right now. Explosion, so that way I can throw that on the corner if they're just holding the tight corner. I like to go chain lightning if I can, to shoot the corpses that are on the ground, because if I'm clearing the goblins and somebody pushes me from there, I can hit the goblins and it'll chain up to them. Haste and magic missile. Haste is just for speed. Magic missile is for clearing the distance mobs, like the skeleton mage, skeleton archers. If somebody is up in my face, I can stat check them, because I'll have high knowledge, high casting speed. I like to run ignite when I can and lightning strike, but right now I'm not finding too many uses for them. When I do solo hell runs, I do ignite, so that way I can actually clear mobs faster without having to exclusively use magic missile. And that, guys, that long fucking winded explanation of the attributes, the spells, what I shoot for, how they all interact, the little advanced tips and tricks. This patch is the easiest one to get gear on. Do not be afraid to die. Start with meditation, get in there, get comfortable with how all the spells work, and then just start trying to finish your quests and do a little PvP. You're gonna get there, I promise. Just because you see me killing people, being able to use VoIP and being perfect through the entire raid, once out of every 10 raids, killing bosses, killing other players, no matter what character they are. You haven't seen my failures. I have failed thousands of times. It's one of the most enjoyable experiences in gaming I've ever had. And I love it so much. And I just want you to love it too. So if you have any questions, I'm going to start taking questions from my Twitch chat. And then, yeah, that's pretty much going to be the end of the little intro tutorial wizard. If you have any questions and you're watching this video not in real time, go ahead, click the link down below to either hop into my Twitch to see like what we're doing. We're live from like 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. most weekdays. Go ahead and ask me whatever questions you want. If you have any combos that you're like, oh, could I do this? Does this work? I probably know. I've probably done it. if you are in Twitch right now and I sent you back here, go ahead and, you know, pop back into the live and say, oh, I watched it all. And use the code word potato. If you don't use the code word potato, I'll know you didn't watch it all. Get fucked, nerd. And I'm going to send you right back because I'm going to say you didn't watch it all, did you? Anyway, that's the little bitch in me. Let's go ahead and take questions from the Twitch chat now. Oh my god, guys, that was so much fucking talking. Jesus Christ. Oh, I gotta play some tunes. Oh my god. Okay. And I wanted to start standing there because, oh my god. The blizzard from today, the blizzard in the fucking Midwest just won't stop, so I gotta make sure I'm not, like, training my muscles to clench up while I'm sitting. This is why we're doing the squat things, basically. All right, let's see here. Let me take a drink first. Oh. That's good. What utilities / items do you like to use? So, pretty much in my utility slot, the only thing that I truly worry about is one, campfire. Let's move these out of the way. Right. So, I usually have, for example, one protection potion, one campfire, and either a torch, or I like to keep a very good med in there. So in close fights, that way I can use, I'll know how to immediately swap to my good bandage, right? Because if you do that, you're set. What wizard race should I pick and why? Okay, so early game, when you don't have a lot of gear, a lot of people will think that they want to pick elf or lizard because you want armor, right? You want to be able to survive. But, you know, you lose the headpiece. That's not too bad. Well, that's where a lot of your magical power is going to come from early. Because the wizard hats up here, see how it's 1 magic power? Well, when you start to get better gear, like let's just use this purple, for example, 5 magical power. And with that 5 magical power, you spike pretty hard. So if you're rocking the lizard, you can't do it because you have a headpiece on. So instead of having that 37, you only have that 27%. Lizard isn't too good for wizard because a lot of our stats will come from those hats, okay? But if you're the orc, see how I'm at 8% physical power right now? 8%. If I go to the orc and equip it, then it gives me 1 free strength. So I'm at -6. A lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, will just use the fucking elf just because they saw their favorite streamer doing it for a movement speed build. And now instead of just -8, they're at -11 physical power. And if you don't have any strength in your build, that is 1/3 less melee damage. So early game, the best thing you can do is start as the orc, because instead of -30, you have -20%, right? And then when you find like a 1 pair of strength gloves, you get close. You need less physical power to help you clear more mobs to get you more gear. More gear means you're going to get more opportunities. You're going to get more quest items. You're going to get more XP, right? 1 movement speed from agility is not going to save you. But -30% to -20%, doing 1/5 less instead of 1/3 less is going to save you so often against mobs. Oh, you had to hit the skeleton 6 times? I only had to hit it 4. Get fucked, nerd. That's what I use. So I missed like the last 45 minutes. Can you repeat? Banned. What's the best spell for clearing mobs with shields? Ignite is going to be the best spell for clearing those, because the way that your staff swings is in a downward from the top left to the bottom right, and their shields will always start on the opposite side, so their head is always exposed. So you'll swing once, hit the head, turn away, and then bash. Oh, I guess one thing we didn't talk about is the movement speed penalties. When you're first playing the game, a lot of wizards will back straight up with their spells. When you're casting spells, you have -65% move speed. But when you are moving forward and left and right, you have no movement speed penalty. But when you're moving backward, it's like -50. -50%. So if you're walking backwards and casting, you are insanely slow. But if you're running away from somebody and you're like kiting sideways, kind of like Link, like, you know, you're going to stay at max move speed. And that's huge. Let's see here. Are you starting with anything other than common gear because you survive raids and get out with it? You only start with junk gear if you don't survive a raid. You just equip it. You can go to the merchant and buy it. That's just... You were probably hoping for something else, but that's literally just it. You saw Death Room on Crips, right? No. Question for you. So, like, when you add agility with gear from the base 15 you have, is it considered bonus move speed or not? The bonus move speed percent is going to be basically whatever your gear is giving you. Right? Or whenever a spell says add move speed bonus. Right? So see how haste says move speed bonus? That's usually going to be what that is. That's a good question. Let's see here. I tried playing this morning before the gym and died immediately to skeletons 3 times in a row. LOL, this game is hard. So for skeletons, you're probably like, wow, that took a long time to melee. It's probably because you have like no strength. So if you go to the merchant, if you've gotten out at all, you can go to the leathersmith and sometimes they'll have strength gloves, right? Get yourself up to the 0% physical power, just like we talked about. You look in the stash, you go to your specs and see what you're at. Because, and this is super important, if you go to the Wikipedia, you can see how much health they all have. So for like skeletons, I think it's like 150 if they're the white version, 200 if they're the red, and like 230 or something like that if they're the nightmare version. And so if you're using your junk staff at negative 25%, it's going to take like 6 hits to just kill a normal skeleton. It's so long, dude. So you have to walk into their aggro range, basically bump into them, and then sidestep out of their way. Don't back up. Never back up away from mobs. You literally turn your entire camera and run that way. Otherwise, you'll be slowed. Okay? So then when you hear them go, "Argh!" and they miss, that's when you turn, bonk, bonk. If you can get 2 hits off. Usually at that low a level, you can't. So try starting with Ignite just to give yourself a little bit more room. Hell, even just cast spells to hit them. Starting with Magic Missile, if you aim a little bit, like in a different direction, try practicing Magic Missile on those mobs that are walking straight towards you. You'll find it a lot easier to do that. Let's see here. Don't go to Crypts till they re-hotfix if you care about the kit you're running. Okay, vibe. Let's see here. I always saw the visual bug with that. I'm surprised it took this long for it to be a thing. You have extracted once. Well, there you go, man. There you go. And for those of you that are curious, yes, even high-level players will desperately need meds to like get in and out of like dungeons. If you don't have meds, the odds that you get out of the actual dungeon are very low. All right, and it looks like those were all of the questions that we had. Now, guys, I can say thank you, Jamie Jam, Astro Zombie, Grammar, and SJB. Thank you guys all so much for the follows like an hour ago. Oh my God. So